A Freilich and Chanukah to everyone. We're starting a new Maimer of Pinchas from the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's on page 182 in the third volume of Maimorim Melukotim that you should have in front of you. Is Baruch here today?
No.
Okay. Beis Samach Dalet. 1 second. You have it, Hillel, or not?
I have it, yes.
Beis Samach Dalet Chof Aleph Kislev Besuda. You know that this is a continuation of Yutes Kislev. So Chof Aleph Kislev, the Rebbe made a Suda. We would have to look at the dates, what day of the week it was. It's interesting. Chof Aleph Kislev later became the date in which the Satmar Rav was saved by the Kastner transport, and the Satmar Hasidim. They celebrate the 21st of Kislev. You know the joke is they say that Chasidus lasted for 1 day. Why? Yutes Kislev, it was when the Balatanya was released from imprisonment, and we celebrate Chasidus. Chof Aleph Kislev, we celebrate the Satmar Rav's release, and the Satmar Rav said, Nishtach HaTorah Baal Shem Tov. The Torah Baal Shem Tov has been forgotten, so there's only 1 day that we celebrate really Chasidus is Chof, the day in between. That's the joke in the community. And for further reading on the subject, I wrote all about it in one of my books, Satmar and Lubavitch. I dealt with the whole parsha of what the Satmar Rav said and what the Rebbe responded 1960 at the Farbrengen, Yutes Kislev. Yes, Hillel.
Could you repeat what the Satmar Rav said? I didn't quite follow it.
The Satmar Rav said and wrote that we don't really know the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. We don't really know the philosophy. People want to quote this and say this, and he wore Strimal, he didn't wear Strimal, he believed in Einoid Mulvada, he preached Einoid Mulvada, all those things. So the Satmar Rav said, Nishtakcha, over the generations, the true teachings of the Baal Shem Tov were forgotten. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying what he said, but that's the gist of the way it was transmitted to the Jewish community. Now, when I interviewed someone who told me that his father, Rabbi Eckhaus, he lives in Crown Heights. He was one of my rebbes in Lubavitch Yeshiva, Rabbi Yaakov Eckhaus. His father, they grew up in Borough Park in the 40s and 50s and the 60s. And his father, who was, I think, became like a Chernobyl chassid, but he had a feeling to the Rebbe Rayatz and the Rebbe, and he yes.
When you say his father,
Eckhaus. I'm sharing you. I'm sharing the conversation that Eckhaus told me. So his father, Yankel Eckhaus, my Rebbe, became a Lubavitcher. So so he shared things with his father. I think maybe and his father came to Farbrengens once in a while. Anyway, he happened to be at the Farbrengen of Yutes Kislev 1960. And it's then, and this can be heard online. It's public record, so don't take my word for it, but listen to it. The Rebbe spoke a sikha, and he cited. Good morning, Boaz. He cited the Rebbe Rashab. Well, the Rebbe Rashab said about Chabad Chasidus, he Torah Baal Shem Tov. That's a citation from the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe repeated this. He. Everyone remembers at he that this is
okay.
And the Rebbe spoke for an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. He spoke at length and he explained, and he was very emotional. He didn't say the Satmar Rav said that, but he said, how can someone say that Torah Baal Shem Tov is forgotten? And the Rebbe took a very, very diametrically opposed approach on the whole thing, and he was crying. He was so upset that someone again, everyone knew he's referring to the Satmar Rav. That was that Farbrengen. This Eckhaus, this I forget his name. He went to a Williamsburg Rav, I forget the name, it's all in my book, I just don't remember now the names, who was very close to the Satmar Rav. He was a prominent rabbi Rav in Williamsburg. And he said, I was by the Fabrengen, and he started to cry. He was like, I couldn't sit there. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was in tears, and he couldn't talk. And I didn't really know what's going on. Then I was told, they explained to me that the Satmar Rav said that Nishtach Torah Baal Shem Tov, and the Rebbe, was very upset about it. So he said to this Rav, could you go talk to the Satmar Rav? And I don't understand where he's coming from. So the Rav went to the Satmar Rebbe, and he said, did you say this? Did you write this? He says, yes. He didn't deny it. He said, yes. He said, how could you say that? First of all, you're a Hasidic Rebbe. You're wearing a Streimer. You're wearing you're the Satmar Rebbe. You're contradicting yourself. Are you a Chassid or not? You are a Chassid. So what are you doing? Anyway, so the Satmar Rebbe was a very smart man, and he was very sharp and clever. So he answered him. He said, I'm not the one who initiated and made this comment. He says, it's actually a Lubavitcher Rebbe who said that. It was the Koppister, Shlomo Zalman Schneerson, who was known as the Baal Mogen Ovels, i.e. the Koppister Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek had 7 sons. 6 became Rebbes. 1 became a Rebbe in a town near Lubavitch called Koppelst. And his son, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, was he passed away 6 months after the Tzemach Tzedek in 1867, I believe, or 66. And shortly thereafter, his son Shlomo Zalman took over the Koppister movement, and he reigned for like 30 years. And he wrote a sefer called Mogen Avos. And in his introduction, he says something similar. So the Satmar Rav said to this rabbi to tell Eckhouse, he says, what do you want from me? I wasn't mechadish it. That was the end of it. He wasn't going to win the argument. That the Rebbe, they had a difference of opinion. By the way, it wasn't only the Rebbe. I heard that the Rabbi Tversky of the Skvera movement, who passed away in 68, he was also up in arms, and he was kind of more of a Polish Rebbe, like the Satmar Rav, he was a Russian, but you know what I'm saying. And so anyway, that's the joke that they say. So you follow now, Hillel? I gave you a little history on it.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But I mean,
yes.
it for more intelligent, information, it needs to be a little more studied. You have to hear. So, if and when someone has the book, Reuven might have my book, Satmar and Lubavitch, and I wrote a whole piece about that there. You might want to borrow it and read it. Okay, page 182. Let's learn some Chasidus. So, Beis Amar Dalet, Chaf Aleph Kislev, Besuda Tovshin Aleph. So this probably was 1940. In the Hebrew was 1941. Tovshin Aleph. Amar Al-Kasandrai, this rabbi Al-Kasandrai says, Kol ha'isik b'Torah l'shmo, whoever learns Torah l'shmo. You learn Torah for the sake of Torah, not for money, not for rabbinics, not for knowledge. You learn it because Hashem says, learn Torah. Says the Gemara, it says Rabbi Kasandrai, he creates peace in the heavenly abodes and in the earthly abodes. He brings everyone together. Shenema, as it says. He holds on to my strength. You make peace for me. You bring Hashem into the world, creating peace. Shalom Yasali. Peace he made for me. Rav says, so that's one virtue of learning Torah Lishma. Here comes another opinion. Rav says, Ki'ilu banom polotin shel maila v'shel mata. It's as though you built a kind of a palace of heaven and earth. Through learning Torah, you build this magnificent palace, spiritual one and a physical one. Shenema, as it says, I will place my words Torah in your mouth, yodi, and in the shade of my hand, kisisicha, I will shield you, lintoya shamayim, to plant the heavens, and create the foundations of earth. So in other words, you actually, Boaz, are creating a heaven, and you're creating a foundation for the earth, i.e. you're making a palotin, a palace, for a heavenly palace and an earthly palace. Further. Number 3, opinion 3, what happens when you learn Torah Lishma? Rabbi Yochanan says, Af mogin al kol ha'olam kulei. Not only do you do something for yourself and the Jewish people, you actually create a shield for the entire world, protective shield. Shenemar, uvetzeil yodi kisisicha. He uses the same verse that he quoted early, the second opinion, and in the shade of my hand, kisisicha, I will shield you, and he's learning pshat that looks like that I will shield you goes for the entire world, not only for the Jewish people. That's opinion number 3. Opinion 4. The Levi Amar, and Levi says, Af mikorev es ha'geula. You also bring close the redemption through learning Torah Lishma. Shenemar, and he brings the pasuk, V'leimar l'tzion, and it was said to Zion, Ami Ota, you are my nation. And we know that Zion, like we have in the Zion b'mishpat tepada v'shaveh b'tzedoka, Zion, Zion is associated. Says the Rebbe now, the previous Rebbe, v'choshiv kam narbo in yonim. So he mentions over here 4 things. 1, a recap. Hasholem ben palmalya shel maila u palmalya shel mata. A peace that is created when you learn Torah Lishma between the heavenly and earthly abodes. They're able to function together in a way that they are not at odds with each other, but rather in a peaceful way. Number 2, boine poltin de mailomata. You actually create, you build a palace, a heavenly palace and a lower palace. 3, mogen al olam kulei. It protects, it causes protection for all of the world. And 4, umekorev es ha'geula, it brings closer the redemption. Shekol ze goyim misha isi b'Torah Lishma. Who causes all of this? Someone who learns specifically Torah for the sake of Torah, called Torah Lishma. Now asks the Rebbe the question, the tzarech lahav, then mahu inyan Torah Lishma. What is this idea of Torah Lishma? Okay, we learned the Gemara. What is the content of Torah Lishma? Number 2, next question. When it comes to the idea of learning Torah Lishma, used by Chazal is osek b'Torah, right? What is it? Look, go back. Rabbi Alexandroi says, Kol ha'osek b'Torah Lishma. It should have said the conventional word, Boaz. What's the conventional word? Kol what? Kol halomed. Whoever learns. The word for limud is learning. Osek means involved. It's not the conventional word for learning. It's a nice word, but it doesn't fit seemingly. That's the second question. Let's go back to the text now. So the second question is, why specifically? When we're talking about the idea of learning Torah Lishma, it says the term osek, it doesn't say the conventional word which is lomed, another Hebrew word which means to study, to learn. So these are the 2 questions, and what the Rebbe is pointing at here, and this is why I feel this mimer is all about the idea of what does it mean to learn Torah for the sake of Torah. I just want to point out to you this, when this mimer was said, this was at a time a little before and a little after when the Lithuanian element of Judaism in America was taking hold and pushing the envelope on B'nai Torah. I wrote about this in another book, and that is that they were looking to save the B'nai Torah, in particular the yeshiva light. They would call them yeshiva light, and they called them also B'nai Torah. In other words, if you weren't a yeshiva man, they used to call them also yeshiva. If you weren't a yeshiva man, you took a second tier in the saving from Europe. I'm sorry to say that, but that's a fact, okay? I documented it. So there became a kind of a schism between the Hasidim and the Litvaks. It wasn't, kind of, bashing each other in public, but behind the scenes they were upset because, everyone should be saved, whether you're a yeshiva man or not. And not that the Litvaks didn't agree, but they said priority should be given to the yeshiva people, to the B'nai Torah. The Kapishnitzah Rebbe, who lived in the Lower East Side in the 1930s, he and another Rav, I forget who, came to the Vad Hatzolah. The Vad Hatzolah was a committee set to save Europeans, Yidden, from, during the Holocaust and all that. And the Vad gave them a cold shoulder and asked, a very prominent person, asked them, is the money you're looking for those? So this is written, what I'm telling you. So he said, hi, good morning, Moshe, and happy Hanukkah. So rather than answering him, he says he picked himself up and he left the office because engage in a dialogue about who is worthy of getting money and who is not worthy of money. But that was
who said what? Like he walked in.
A group called Vad Hatzolah Rescue. The committee was headed primarily by Litvak Rabbonim. Okay, the Litvish. Rabbi Kalmanovitz was like the head. Rabbi Avram Kalmanovitz, who was a Mir, and then he came to America, and he was a very prominent person. There were other Rabbonim. So the Kapishnitzah Rebbe and another Hasidic Rav, I forget who, came to the office of Vad Hatzolah in Manhattan, and they said, we need funds, can you give us some funds? And so the person said, we give funds, but first we give funds to the B'nai Torah, to those that are learning. And then he asked them, are your people you're asking for, are they B'nai Torah? So it says that the Kapishnitzah Rebbe looked at the other Rav, and he didn't answer, and he just gave him a wink, let's get up and leave. And that's what they did, because they saw he wasn't going to, engage in a dialogue, and start. And so I'm just saying there was a current outside of Lubavitch. People think that's doing it with Lubavitch. It's wrong historically. Outside of Lubavitch, there was a current for the B'nai Torah. When the previous Rebbe came to America and he was saved, the previous Rebbe was aware of this. First of all, because Reb Shmuel Witten, his chassid, and came to America in 1938, and he already had been going to some of these meetings, and he was summoned to some of these meetings. They respected him, and the Vad Hatzolah actually, so he knew of what was going on, and he communicated to the previous Rebbe these type of issues that I'm telling you. So the Frierdiker Rebbe saw and told his son-in-law, Rabbi Garari, Rabbi Shmayo Garari, we're not going to, we're not going to get them to change their opinion, and we need to, get funds to rescue the Chachmei Lublin Talmidim, the Lubavitcher Talmidim, and the Amshinov. There were 3 Hasidic groups in Shanghai who escaped from Poland, and they made it to Shanghai, and they didn't have much food, and they needed, help, and they were the Chachmei Lublin, Reb Meir Shapiro, right, the Daf HaYomi. He was a chassid, right? He was a Chartkiver chassid. Reb Meir Shapiro was a chassid of the Holy Chartkiver Rebbe, and there was Amshinov, Reb Shimon Amshinov, another like the great uncle of today, the Amshinov of Bayit Vagan, his great uncle, I believe, and there was the Lubavitch Yeshiva. So the previous Rebbe saw that he's going to have to go his own. So contrary to the way some want to believe, or many want to believe, that the previous Rebbe decided not to cooperate. Of course he wanted to cooperate, but after getting a report from Shmuel Witten, like a story with the Kapishnitzah Rebbe in 39, and the previous Rebbe wasn't yet there in America, so he saw that there's no one to talk to here. We have to create our own funds. Why am I saying this? Because this mimer was said in Tafshin Aleph. This was the time, the period, it was these months when the previous Rebbe clandestinely had a magazine, a newspaper published called Hakriya Vakdusha, the call and the holiness. And in Hakriya Vakdusha, this was a call to Jews, the Yidden, who are, were losing their faith because of the Holocaust. And in 1940, November, I think of October, November November was the first issue. And so every month there was a issue of where he had articles written about building in various ways, some about Chasidus, some not about Chasidus, some different things, to create emunah and faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So one of the other things that he did in these publications is he wrote Maimorim in Yiddish, because people were speaking Yiddish at the time, and the Maimorim, and later it was printed in a sefer called Sefer HaMaimorim Yiddish, the book of Maimorim that's written in Yiddish, which we have and we learn, and it's wonderful. And those Maimorim talk a lot about emunah and betoch, and faith and trust in Hashem. But at the same time, I think there was an important message that he had to share in these type of Maimorim that he said in Crown Heights in the 40-41, where he talks a lot about what does it mean to learn Torah. In other words, he's kind of responding to the B'nai Torah. You claim you're B'nai Torah, so the Rebbe here is analyzing what does it really mean to be a Ben Torah. And that's why he talks about the idea of Torah Lishma. What I just told you is my own. I didn't see this anywhere, but I'm just putting it together, and I have this feeling that this is an underlying message in some of these discourses, that he's trying to open up the paradigm of the Litvishem B'nai Torah, that, learning Torah Lishma, and if you call yourself a Ben Torah, it means something very different, which we're going to learn. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay. I'm sorry. What? What'd you say? Yeah. Let's go weiter. Okay, let's go further. Okay, so he says, the idea is the Torah Lishma. What does it mean to learn Torah for the sake of Torah? Hakavona, the intent, the purpose is Masha HaTorah Oir. It's the fact that Torah is light. The Shem Torah he hayros derech. When you have light, it illuminates the road, the dark road or the dark path, and all of a sudden you see where you are, where you're going. So too Torah is light in the sense that it's hayros derech. It shows you the road. It shows you the way you should be going. The Misha Heilich B'Choshech, someone who's walking in darkness, Nimshal Gam Be'evan Cotton, he can even trip over a small stone, a small pebble, V'Neifel Gam Le'Boy Cotton, and he can fall into a small pit, because he doesn't have light, he doesn't see where he's going, so his foot gets stuck and it falls and he can get hurt. But someone who walks in a place of light, even if he's walking somewhere where there are large stones, even if there are, all kinds of large pits, he's saved from them, from falling there. And no bad will happen to him. Why? Because the light that shines there, it lights up his way. Hayashar is the right proper way. And he finds light, v'nosif, and a path, but tuach, and a secured path. So that he doesn't get hurt, he doesn't have the obstacle of a dangerous thing that's called davar hamazik. Conversely, if he walks in a dark place, he touches the thick darkness. It's totally dark. He doesn't see at all the right proper path. And how is he walking there? He's accustomed every day. He goes on this road, so he's walking there. But right now it's very dark. And if by chance, as he's walking on a path that he's accustomed to walking, but it's now very dark, he can trip over something very small. It's an obstacle for him, and he falls down. And sometimes not only does he slip, but his entire posture falls. And he falls down completely, kind of on his back. And he damages his limbs. He breaks his bones, his outer ones. He can break some of the inner bones and limbs. Till he becomes very ill from this fall. And he needs all kinds of medicines to make him rise from his illness. Why did this happen? Because he walked in darkness. He walked in a dark place. Don't walk in a dark place. Chaim, who beruchni now the Rebbe says, all of the above we find beruchni in spiritual terms. Someone who learns Torah or learns halachas, that makes you walk in a proper path. It illuminates your life. You know and see what you're doing. But if someone who is not learning the halacha, but he's doing it just because of hergol, because he's accustomed, that person is it's like he knows the road to walk on, the street to walk on, but he's tapping the darkness. It's very dark. So he introduces now a term here, Hillel, called Kav Chumtin. There's a Gemara Baba Metzia. Did you ever learn the Gemara? Kav Chumtin? Kav is a measurement, right? Kav, kabayim, a certain measurement that was used in Talmudic times. Chumtin is what? I think like barley or grain, So the Gemara says a person rather have one kav of his own chumtin more than 9 kabin, 9 times the amount of someone else's grain. Right, Moshe? You'd rather have a little of what you create yourself through hard work than it being given to you. Being given to you, for temporarily. Wow, I'm getting so much, I'm being given. But at the end of the day, it's not you. You didn't create it, so it's not you. So it's there and it's gone. But something that you create stays with you. So what does he say over here, Hillel? Gevald Gazach. That someone who learns and who knows even halacha, but doesn't have the pnimius HaTorah, is missing the kav chumtin. In other words, pnimius HaTorah requires, you coming to a place yourself of the relationship of you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, yes, of course, halacha illuminates a person's life, and without it, we can't begin. But nevertheless, to be able to continue where you find satisfaction in your avodas Hashem, he says, it's the holiness of pnimis HaTorah. In other words, you can learn and learn and learn, but you have to attain kedushas HaTorah. Because at the end of the day, the forces of not learning are so much greater in our life, okay? We have seen, and we see people that learned, and learned, and all of a sudden they don't learn, they're in different pastures, and why? But you learn so much. Why? Because there's a schlep, there's a great force that's looking to schlep you to other fields that's greater. So unless you come to a point where you say, I'm learning not because of the information, I'm learning because this is holy, and holiness is where it's at. Hashem is holy. He wants me to be holy. He wants us to create kedusha. And that is the barometer. You hear? This is what the Rebbe is introducing to us in this mimer, which is very important. That the Pnimius HaTorah is the mechanism to create kedusha in one's life. And kedusha in one's life, and not only in one's life, kedusha in Torah will get the Torah to be illuminated and not just be in a dark alley where you're accustomed to doing it. So, for example, you're accustomed to getting up in the morning, saying brachas, going to shul, putting on your tefillin, saying ashrei. You could do it in your sleep because you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, and it's like, that's not kedusha. That's, you're a good boy. You'll get an A for discipline, and that's important. But that's not yet kedusha. Kedusha is that when I put my tefillin on, and when I do a mitzvah, I feel something. I bond with something higher. That's not the physical. It's an elation that's created from a bond with divinity. Can you say that when you put on tefillin and when you sing Zmiras on Shabbos, that what's really happening is the kedusha? That's the equation. That's what we're looking for. Pnimius HaTorah, one second, Hillel. Pnimius HaTorah is that section of Torah which complements the other section, and what's its novelty? That it lends itself to create, if learned and felt and used properly, to create Kedushas HaTorah. Yes, Hillel.
I just want to comment. It reminds me when they tell the story that the Chedush Arim, the founder of the Ger Chasidus, was hiring a Malamed for his grandson, who became the Sfas Emes.
Yes.
That the part of the contract was that they had to learn each day until they came up with a Chiddush in Torah.
And that reminds me of another story with the previous Rebbe, who had our author, he had three girls, right? Chana, Rebbe Chaim Mushka, the Rebbe's wife, and Shena, who never passed away in Treblinka. So he hired for them a Malamed when they were young girls, because in those days you had a Malamed. One day, the Rebbe asked the son, "Tell me, with your daughters." So he went and inquired, and he found out that certain parts of Bereshis he skipped because he felt the little girls won't relate to it. Let's say the story of Yosef and Potiphar. I'm just giving you an example. Different sections, different things in Bereshis which require more of a mature approach. Actual approach, I don't feel this is what a Yiddish child needs. They need the emunah tahora, the pure emunah. If this is what the Torah says, that's what it says. Yes, you're not mature to understand it fully, fine, you'll be older, you'll understand more. But right now, to kind of say, and this is, you're not talking about here reform and conservative. You're talking about probably a Hasidic, a Litvak makes a difference. Afrum Yid was the Malamed of the Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe's Techter, his daughters. But nevertheless, as soon as he heard that they're playing around, kind of, he said he's playing around, that he's this this not. He said, I'm sorry. That means he's approaching the whole Torah not with a kedusha. That's the point, Moshe. There needs to be kedushas HaTorah. And I want to say, for example, that I had a chavrusa once. It lasted one session. He told me he wants to learn Chasidus, but he says he doesn't want to learn Tanya. I said, no problem. What do you want to learn? He wants to learn Tiferes Shleima of the Holy Tzaddik, the Radomsk Rebbe. Radomsk was in Poland. Very famous. Tiferes Shleima. He lived about 150.
Ancestor of Rabbi Shapira.
Yes.
Next door.
So I said, fine, no problem. So we sit down to learn Tiferes Shleima, and he, after one or two lines, it's some Kabbalah there. So he says, let's skip that. So I say, why? Let's try to understand it. He says, no, I was taught in yeshiva in Brooklyn. I was taught when you're learning Chasidus and you and it comes to a piece of Kabbalah, you skip. Okay, one time. We learn another few lines, another piece of Kabbalah. He says, let's skip that. And so we basically, in 1/2 an hour, skipped most of the page. And I said to him, and he's a good friend, and till today, I said, I can't learn with you. I don't. This to me is not learning. This is like you're skipping. So what I want to say is, and I'm not saying that because he's a very fine yid and he's a real fine person and he's a real yid, But in a way, that's also not kedushas haTorah. I'm sorry. What do you mean? All of Torah. You understand a little more, a little less. But if you're learning the Chasidus of the Teferi Shleima, learn all of it. What are you choosing to pick? Okay, so you don't understand. Who understands everything? But to go and discard, much of the text or half of the text because it mentions some Kabbalah, use your head. What Chabad Chasidus has Kabbalah in it, we try to understand it a little more, a little less. So what I'm saying is that this idea at the bottom of the page here about Kedushas HaTorah is something that isn't just for the story with the previous Rebbe, with the Malamed who cuts out sections of Bereshis. And it's not just, the Reform, the Conservative, the Bechlal, I'm saying, the movements of Judaism over the years, but it could be even in our own Hasidic world, in our own Torah world, where we choose and pick. There's a mimer of the Rebbe that he said in 1952, Parshas Mishpatim, Lo tiyeh meshakela v'akara b'artzecha. It's a pasuk in Parshas Mishmos. There won't be a barren woman, and it's a very famous mimer because the Rebbe was very emotional when he said it, and he spoke about how a person needs to do what Hashem wants and not think about what they've achieved. And the Rebbe says even to think about how much love you have for God and how much fear you have for God is also a detraction from the mission. It's a very, maybe one day we should learn it. I hope maybe Taka one day to learn it together. Anyway, so in this mimer, the Rebbe talks about this idea of being barren. What does it mean spiritually to be barren? So he says in the mimer, one of the things is where you choose and pick within Torah. We're not talking about the idea. There is a concept of a person should learn b'mokim sheli b'chafetz. Let's say you like Erevin and you want to learn tractate Erevin, Psachim, Sukkah, right? Erchin. But when you start learning Erchin or Psachim, learn you're going to go to the page. Oh, these lines in the Gemara turn me on. These lines I don't understand. I'm skipping. It's not that. If you learn and you don't understand, so then you say, listen, this section I understand better, but at least you attempt to find out the pshat. You look into an article Gemara, you ask her a Pinchas, you go to a shir, you talk to someone a little more, okay, and also, I'm not saying that a person doesn't have a certain, chafetz. Every one of us gravitates to a certain section of Torah that talks more. Like for Reb Pinchas, he loves Gemara. It talks much more to him than other. That's what turns him on. Beautiful. What turns me on more is Chasidus. Everyone we're entitled to that. We're entitled to that. But what you learn, you have to learn, not skip pages and because then it's not kedusha. It's like it's an intellectual endeavor. It's like a person going to law school and deciding this not. No. Guys, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Zaygas, have a good day.
Yeah. Enjoy your time in Florida.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. We're learning. Take care.
All right.